Good morning, everybody. There are a huge multitude of spellcasters you can play in Dungeons & Dragons Online. We're talking wizards, we're talking sorcerers, warlocks, druids, the whole shebang. You got so many different characters to choose from. So why would you pick Artificer? I mean, when you think traditionally, an artificer is somebody who builds things and crafts and creates. And generally, this is true. However, artificers in 3.5 worked a little bit differently than the modern artificers of 5th edition, and Dungeons & Dragons Online kind of ignores that entirely too and just makes them a full spellcaster. They get access to repair spells, they get some healing magic in the form of the curative admixtures, but most importantly, they get lightning magic. Because like robots and constructs, they're connected through lightning, sure, and as a result, you can play a spellcaster artificer. So you might be wondering, why would you want to do that? Artificers don't get high level spells, they stop at spell level 6, and on top of that they also get spells slower. Additionally, their spells don't scale as well as the spells of other classes, leading the observant viewer to notice they're kind of worse than just playing something else. But it's when you dig deep into the mechanics that you find the gold nuggets that make Caster Artificer an absolute dream to play. You see, there's a second part of Artificer that everybody knows, but maybe doesn't know the exact mechanics, and that is rune arms. Rune arms are arm cannons you strap to your offhand that allow you to deal elemental damage, or really whatever damage type the rune arm is, to any monsters you decide to shoot. It's important to note that rune arms ignore all animation cues, which means if your character is mid-casting a spell, you can still fire your rune arm, heavily increasing the amount of damage you deal. Additionally, rune arms scale off of spell stats, using spell power and spell critical for their damage. And finally, they also scale their damage based on your artificer level. This means that as you increase in level, not only are your rune arms doing more damage, but your base spells are too. And they combine because they scale off of the same stats. On top of that, artificers get really strong area of effect spells, and one of the best spells in the entire video game, Tactical Detonation, or Tactical D for short. Tactical D does fire damage, force damage, and it knocks down targets. Now, this might not sound super impressive because if you actually read the numbers on the skill, they don't look that good. However, force damage ignores basically all resistances in the entire game, hitting every single monster. And the knockdown works on basically every single monster. And this is because this is a knockdown and not a trip. You cannot trip a flying creature because its feet are not on the ground. You can't sweep the leg and take down a griffin. But you can knock down a griffin as if you maybe hit it with a large boulder and knock it to the ground, which is why Tactical Detonation works on flying creatures. And a very dangerous flying creature that a lot of people are aware of is known as the Reaper. Reapers are extremely strong, fast creatures in Reaper mode, and they get completely dumpstered by Tactical Detonation. Just show them your Tactical D, and they quiver in fear and die quickly. On top of that, they also get like Chain Lightning, which is pretty good. So overall, artificers are surprisingly good as spellcasters. They're not the number one in damage, and I want to make sure that's super clear. However, they are extremely powerful when it comes to versatility, being able to heal themselves and others mid-combat, fairly universal crowd control from Tactical D, and a good amount of damage, as well as good and infinite scaling since they get free spells effectively from their rune arms. Rune arms, especially some of the higher level ones, can be hitting for upwards of 30,000 damage on a full charge once you get some of the really, really good ones. So keep that in mind. Your character can hit very, very hard. So if rune arms and artificers are so good, what are the drawbacks? Why wouldn't you want to play one? Well, for starters, like most spellcasters, they kind of have a slow leveling curve in that they don't really start spellcasting well until level 6. You see, before level 6, artificers only have Static Shock and Lightning Sphere, two spells that are okay, but they're not really that great. But once you get to level 6, you're able to pick up Lightning Rod, a frontal AoE attack that is addictive. It does a ton of damage. On top of that, they also get a spell-like ability for Lightning Rod, so you can be doing double Lightning Rod and kind of running through every adventure. Artificers also dealing lightning damage means they don't really have to deal with pretty much any immunities during the general leveling process until they get to higher levels where they start encountering flesh golems or demons that happen to be immune. However, artificers, once they reach level 12, can strip lightning immunity from anything they hit with their rune arm, meaning that by the time you hit 12 and you start encountering all these dangerous devils like Jarliths and Orthons that are all immune to lightning, you don't have to worry about that at all. You just strip the lightning immunity away and blast, blast, blast. So, since they have a bit of a slow leveling curve before 6, the answer is you just use a repeating crossbow. Repeating crossbow is so strong in the early levels, you don't really need to try anything else, so you just repeating crossbow your way all the way up to level 6, and then once you're level 6, dump your points in the Arcano-Technician tree and start blasting people with spells. Then from then on, they don't really struggle pretty much at any point through the entire leveling process. They do sometimes get a little spell point hungry if you are not using shrines or if you're not using your rune arm. I found that using the rune arm, I never really needed to worry about actually hitting shrines for the most part because I was very, very heavily invested in that. However, again, it depends on what you want to do. Additionally, Artificers can be quite tanky by drawing points into the Renegade Mastermaker tree, gaining hit points, as well as the ability to repair yourself, which heals you very quickly in a pinch because you can take the improved Construct Essence feat at level 12 and allow yourself to be healed even if you're not an Artificer, a Warforged. You can turn your gnome or whatever you want into a Warforged, which is why this character is not one and I turn into one. Something that's even more fun about Artificer is that once you get to the level cap, the build that you generally run on a Caster Artificer is Draconic Incarnation with double Ruin. That's Ruin and Greater Ruin. And the main reason is that you're already scaling Force spell power because you want to increase the damage of your tactical detonation, and you're already scaling Lightning spell power because you have all Lightning spells. There's an effect in Draconic Incarnation that allows your Ruin to deal the same amount of damage, 500, as the element you've chosen as your dragon type. In this case, you would be doing 500 Force and 500 Electric, as well with Greater Ruin, 1000 Force and 1000 Electric. This turns your Artificer into a absolute nuking monster once you get to the level cap, being able to blow stuff up very, very, very quickly. This proved to be incredibly effective during Hardcore 5, where me and some of my buds got to the level cap on the 4th day of Hardcore, and being the only 3 characters at level 30, we were able to earn our 10 Reaper points super fast by running R4s because Artificer, Tactical Detonation, and the area of effect damage they provide is just so strong even on a low gear level. So will you enjoy Caster Artificer? I mean, I hope so. They're a little bit slower than some of their other caster counterparts like Sorcerer or Favored Soul, but they have really consistent, easy damage. They have a backup when they run out of spell points in the rune arm that you should be getting used to casting anyway, even when you have spell points. They got the healing. They have buffs. You can disable traps, which I didn't even mention. They're obviously a trap class, so you can disable all the traps in the game without having to multi-class, which is also really nice. So they just happen to have a huge heapin' helpin' of utility, and they fit well into pretty much any team or composition. I really enjoy Caster Artificer, and it's only gotten better. At some point in the future, I know Standing Stone Games has said they want to add in an Artificer Epic Destiny of sorts. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm hoping that when that comes in, it'll fit nicely into Arcano-Technician, because right now Draconic Incarnation is so good, but you can even just go Primal Avatar if you want to have like more spell point count. Or a build I experimented with that I found pretty enjoyable on a gnome or a deep gnome is the Weird Artificer, where instead of taking Draconic Incarnation, you go Shadow Dancer, you pick up Weird, and you're running around instant killing people, which is also fun and also very weird. You can be really flexible with Artificer, so don't kind of box yourself in. Just make sure you pick up some rune arms, you equip them, and you start blasting away. Now, I'm sure you're tired of listening to me talk about this, so I'm going to pass over to me with the build. While you would think that playing an Artificer involves shooting a crossbow, it turns out that that's just the worst way to do it. When instead you could blast people with fantastic lightning, both from your spells that you can cast or from your rune arm, because that's just the best way to do it. There's basically no way to get around that. It's super strong right now, and Caster Artificer is wrecking things in game. And here today I have for you Strimtom, the Spellcaster Artificer. Dropping in here with that intelligence. You got some physical magical resistance rating. My gear is very bad, but this character actually does get quite tanky defensively. It's got lots of hit points. It's got lots of armor class. When actually geared and not wearing gear from level like 8 to 10 at level cap. It's quite strong once you actually get it there. The benefit of Artificer is they have huge amounts of armor class, physical magical resistance rating, and on top of that, constitution and free hit points from the Renegade Mastermaker tree, and being able to quickly heal yourself with repair and just turning yourself into a construct alone is already good enough to give you so many good defensive benefits. I'm talking about fortification bonuses. We're talking about immunity to diseases, energy drains, you name it. It's fantastic, and you're going to get a lot of good results out of Caster Artificer. So max out that int, put some points into con. The rest of the stuff doesn't really matter. I had a little bit of charisma because I just wanted to like use UMD. wasn't really necessary. You get so much from Artificer. Anyway. Skills. You get all of them because you're an intelligence-based class. So the main ones, Spellcraft, Search, Repair, Disable Device, Open Lock, Spot. After that, it doesn't matter. I put Heal so I could have some extra healing spell power. Not really relevant, but it was fine. Jump, just because you don't jump a lot. As an Artificer, you don't get the jump stat. So I just wanted to be able to have a baseline 40 jump, and I'm almost there. And usually in Quest, I put greater heroism on myself, and I do get that jump a little bit higher. Haggle, because I like good prices and good deals. Swim, because it's funny. Use Magic Device, because you got to use Magic Device. As I said, a lot of these are superfluous, but the main ones, use Magic Device, Search, Spot, Spellcraft, Repair, Open Lock, Disable Device. As long as you have those main ones, the rest of them don't really matter that much. Now, as far as feats go, they're a little bit complicated. It's hard for me to go over the main feats, so I'm just going to talk about some of the basic stuff. Metamagics, for me, I took Quicken, Maximize Heighten, and Power. I never used a Heighten, and I completely forgot I even had this feat until staring at it right now. I never use this. But you can, if you want. It does increase the power level of some of your lower level spells, but most of the spells you're actually casting for effectiveness are just like Chain Lightning and Tactical Detonation, and currently Blast Rod doesn't have a saving throw, so you probably don't even need Heighten. So that's kind of cool. Additionally, I took Construct Essence and Improved Construct Essence. This makes my character a Warforged, so I can actually heal myself with Repair, so I can cast a Repair spell on myself, as opposed to casting a just a regular healing spell, plus it gives you all the Warforged Repair bonuses and stuff, so it's really, really good ability, and I highly recommend you take that. And then on top of that, you get the Spell Focus and Greater Spell Focus Evocation. The only other extra feats I would say I took on top of this were obviously the Past Life feats that I have, which are very useful. Past Life Wizard gives you +1 to all your DCs, which you just need Evocation, but still it's good. And then I have Completionist, so I took Completionist. If you don't have that, either of these feats, you could sub out these ones in the build guide for like Mental Toughness and Improved Mental Toughness, which gives you more spell points, and it gives you more critical chance, which is still pretty good and fine. As far as epic feats, this character I decided to go with the Ruin route at 27 and 30. I think Ruin and Greater Ruin are fantastic on Artificers whose spells are relatively low mana cost and get a ton of extra spell points from all sorts of different sources, as you can give yourself temporary spell points, and you get temporary spell points back just whenever you cast any spells at all. So it makes Ruin and Greater Ruin great options for this character with Draconic Incarnation. And then I took Wellspring of Power and Burst of Glacial Wrath. Burst of Glacial Wrath is amazing because you don't have any way to make monsters helpless as an Artificer at all, but you can use Color Spray, which is what I did during the heroic leveling process. The problem with Color Spray is that it's an illusion ability, and I don't have illusion spell DCs on an Artificer. It's only Evocation. So at 24, I swapped out of Color Spray, and I took Burst of Glacial Wrath, and this works on everything, and it's fantastic. You're going to be using this all the time. And then Wellspring of Power is the best cooldown in the game for damage for spellcasters, so you take it. It's good. As far as your spells go, this one's pretty straightforward. When you're playing Caster Artificer, take caster damage spells. The only one I would recommend you avoid is the Static Touch spell. This spell sucks. Just take Shocking Bolt and use this instead during the leveling process. And then you get Lightning Sphere 2, Blast Rod, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Motes, Prismatic Strike, and then Chain Lightning, Tactical Detonation, and Arcane Tempest. In terms of the 6th level spells, because they're all damage, and except for, Reconstruct, I did Tactical Detonation at 15, Chain Lightning at 16, then I took Reconstruct after that, and the last one I slotted in was Arcane Tempest, because Tactical Detonation is an extremely high damage spell that also crowd controls every monster in the game, except for like, there's only 3 or 4 monsters that this doesn't work on, so amazing ability. You're going to be casting this all the time. You should be using Tactical Detonation every day when you can. Now, as far as the actual enhancement tree goes, I did a bit of a shuffling around here. So the Gnome tree right here, I used... one of the first things I did was grab Greater Color Spray. This is awesome during the leveling process. So Arcano Technician is really good. You want to take that. You always want to put 1 point here into Curative Admixture, Cure Light Wounds, because you don't really take the Construct Essence feats until level 12, because you still have good like healing until then. So since until 12 you're going to be healing yourself, I liked having Curative Admixture, Cure Light Wounds, just 1 point in here, so I could maximize Empower this and get all the extra healing out. And then grabbing Color Spray is amazing because oftentimes you're not the highest damage character, and your Rune Arm is going to be doing most of your damage for you. So I would go with this. In fact, I actually put very few points in Arcano Technician. The way that I did this is I grabbed Static Shock, and I maxed this out first. Then I put the 1 point in Renegade Mastermaker. Then I went into Battle Engineer, and I picked up this setup, these 6 points exactly. Then I went into Gnome and grabbed Color Spray, and that's like almost like 24, 25. So I'm like level 7 at this point, and I've got no points spent in Arcano Technician outside of Static Shock. And then I started putting points into Arcano Technician. The reason is that your Rune Arm is going to be most of your damage in the early leveling process. This 1 point right here is extremely useful for just curing yourself and keeping yourself alive. And Greater Color Spray is your best damage spell because it's like a damage spell because it increases your damage and it stops monsters from doing anything, allowing you to just kind of mow them down with your rune arm. Is somebody mowing their lawn? Somebody is mowing their lawn outside. That's unbelievable. Anyway, it's April. The snow just melted. Whatever. Anyway, and then Renegade Mastermaker, I actually went up for Cure Serious Wounds first because I wanted to make sure that I got this as soon as possible. So I did make a mistake. I just kept these 4 points here and I got Cure Serious Wounds. So 11 points here, 6 points here, and 6 points here. And then I went into Arcano Technician, moving up here. You might be wondering, why not just use the Fade Arc Illusionist Greater Color Spray? And the main reason is that it's cheaper to do it from Gnome, so you get it sooner. And that's pretty much it. This one you have to wait until level 6 to get it, and you get this before level 6. And this one also costs 11 points, whereas this one only costs 6 points. So it's just easier to get to, and you get it faster, which for me is more valuable for the leveling process. If you're not playing as a gnome, obviously don't use a gnome tree, Fade Arc Illusionist, and kind of swap up from there. So you'd be 11 points here, 11 points here, 6 points here, 4 points here, and then you start putting points in Arcano Technician. Another pro tip for leveling up, these 1% crits are not really good. They're good because it's 1% crit, but most class trees have 2% crit, and since you only get 1%, the impact is very small for these 8 points. So what I did personally is I actually didn't even take these until epics. I took other stuff. I picked up the auto repair on the pet. I grabbed the extra spell power here, the mana. I had the spell like ability. I had reduced cost reduction on my quicken. I grabbed that stuff first. The crit is definitely the last thing I would take, and I only had these in epics, and heroics I did not take these. And then Renegade Mastermaker, once you become an actual Warforged, you just take all the good defensive stuff. Repair Ramp, Repair Ramp, Repair Ramp, and health, and max dex bonus, and health, and max, and constitution, and magic resistance rating. So many cool things, so many good things. Important note, this is only if you're a pure Artificer, if you multi-class for evasion, which I don't recommend you do, but if you want to do that, then you don't take embed component here and you change up the entire build, but that's up to you. And then we have Epic Destinies. The way that I went with this is Draconic Incarnation, because obviously Shirati got nerfed, so I can't use that. That was a joke. You want to be Draconic Incarnation for 2 reasons. 3 reasons? 4 reasons. 4 reasons. 1, lightning. You're all lightning, pretty much. You have a 1 force spell that also does fire damage, and the rest of it's just lightning, and almost every rune arm in the game will actually fuel itself. It'll usually have its own spell power on it. So if you get like an acid rune arm or something, it'll usually have acid stats on it. You don't have to worry about stacking those things. So you want as much lightning as possible, and this tree delivers. Spell power for lightning and penetration, as well as pure lightning damage and lightning damage scaling. The best part about this is that during the leveling process, you're basically, if this, or whenever this goes off, so once every 5 seconds, you kill whatever you're shooting at, doesn't matter, during the epic leveling process. And then in raids, this just adds a jillion damage to bosses, so you're a happy camper. On top of that, you also get to pick up Pull from the Wellspring for the insane extra double damage. You get Energy Burst or Breath, both are fine. I went with Burst because I want to test it out. Breath, in my opinion, is better because of how you angle your shots. You always want to be standing away from a monster, shooting the rune arm at the same time, and you should be actively using your rune arm on this character. So I went with that instead of the Energy Burst, I would go with the Breath, but I wanted to test out Burst. And then up at the top, Rune Intensified, which is really what makes your Ruin so special. It doubles the damage, so you're dealing force and electric damage with Ruin. So right now, with my low stats, my Ruin does 10,000, Greater Ruin does 20,000 damage, critting for even higher. And that's with nothing on it. Just 20k, that's just how much you do with Greater Ruin. And then if you crit, it does even more. So, of course, this is fantastic. And then Fatesinger and Magus. Magus is for 10% extra mana, as well as I got Great Summoner, so it makes my pet a little bit stronger. You don't need this, it's totally useless, but the benefit of Great Summoner means if you're running a bit of content like, what's that quest? The giant quest. Tempest Spine, you can summon the dog and you can pull the levers because it takes 75 strength, so that's not bad. And you need something to move up to the tree, so it was fine here. And then at a Fatesinger, Fatesinger's not super great for this build, but it does give 10% spell cost reduction, and I kind of weighted against other stuff, and that seemed like it was the most impactful thing to me. Reducing the cost of your spells, Ruin and Greater Ruin are not spell-like abilities, they are spells, so this cost reduction actually works on spells, giving you 40% on your own, 50% with a Bard, and with a Bard and during your Dragon form, 100% spell cost reduction, so you can do whatever you want and cast your spells as much as you feel like doing. So that's kind of what I went with here. And as far as items go, you're going to want to collect up a whole heap and help and rune arms. They're classified as weapons. It takes practice to get used to them, But my best recommendations is Flicker is amazing for low levels, and I highly recommend you use Flicker in the early levels of the game. It's very, very strong. You're going to be using this all the time. Great rune arm. Another one that's fantastic, Stronti's Hand Cannon. I use Stronti's Hand Cannon right up until about level 10-ish. You can even go as far as like 15 or so. And then once you get to around 10 to 15, there's a couple options. The Exploding Fire Shot from Ravenloft is quite good. That comes from Wizard of the Wines. And then you've also got Arc Welder here. There's two different Arc Welders, both the Lash and the Storm. They're both fantastic weapons. Doesn't matter which one you get. They're both amazingly good. And then as you move on, you get even better ones. End game-wise, you're going to want to be picking up the trash one, Dumpster Fire. Dumpster Fire is the best single target damage rune arm in the entire game. And you will want to use that on this build because you do so much rune arm damage. You need it. It's imperative on bosses. If you're going to press a button and hit somebody for 30,000 and go, wow, rune arms are really crazy, because they are when you're actually a spellcaster. Outside of that, straightforward. You only need Evocation. That's the only spell you care about. So Evocation DCs on items, Intelligence gear, defensive stats, Constitution, physical magical resistance rating, etc. And then, of course, you need force damage. So you want force damage. You need fire for a little bit of just the one fire effect on tactical detonation. So it's not a need, but it is nice to have. Lightning. So I have lightning on my rune arm here because most rune arms fuel themselves. And then, of course, repair. Positive healing is also nice if you want to have some healing for other people, but that's the majority of it. And that's pretty much all you need on this character. Overall, I would say that the Caster Artificer is really, really strong. It leveled very, very easily. It's not the fastest, which you need to understand. This is not the fastest character out there. It's not an alchemist, okay? It's not a sorcerer, but it's tankier than both, and it has just incredible utility. It may not be the fastest, but you can literally walk through the game, tactical detonate, and just clear every room in the game. You press one tactical detonation, all the monsters sit down, and then you just do another one, and then they're all dead. And you keep moving on. You can't really screw up with Caster Artificer, which is one of the reasons why it's so nice. But that's all I have for you today, so thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe to the channel and Caster Artificer your way onto the Twitch live stream at twitch.tv/Strimtom, so that way you too can watch and see how this character comes together and all the pieces that I got to learn about it myself as I went through it. So instead of having to watch a YouTube video, you can just watch 40 to 60 hours of leveling to see how the character performs. Isn't that better than watching this more compact, dense thing? No? Anyway, come join the stream anyway. That's all I have. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to go eat a goat. I'll be back.